Akeem traced the condensation on her glass, watching the amber liquid inside shimmer under the cafe's dim lighting. The blind date had been a disaster from the moment Harry walked in, 20 minutes late, hair disheveled and smelling faintly of engine grease. "Sorry," he'd mumbled, sliding into the booth across from her. "Emergency at the shipyard." She'd forced a smile, her bioluminescent markings dimming with disappointment. 3 cycles on this human colony world, and she still couldn't understand their customs. Back on Velcara Prime, courtship was efficient, genetic compatibility scans, family lineage reviews, ceremonial exchanges. Here, humans stumbled through something called dating, with all the grace of a cargo freighter attempting atmospheric entry. Harry was distinctly ordinary. Average height for a human male, plain features, calloused hands that suggested manual labor. Nothing like the decorated officers or wealthy merchants her family expected her to pursue. The matchmaking algorithm had promised a 93% compatibility rating, but algorithms couldn't account for the complete absence of chemistry. "So," Harry said, attempting conversation, "your profile mentioned you're a xenobiologist?" "Exobotanist," Akeem corrected, her accent clipping the syllables. "I study cross-species agricultural integration." "Right, that's really something." The silence that followed was suffocating. Akeem checked her chronometer. 37 minutes. She could endure another 23 before making a polite excuse and never seeing this human again. Then the cafe door burst open, a small human child. No, more than 6 standard years, rocketed through the entrance, her dark curls bouncing as she scanned the room with wild urgency, her eyes locked onto Harry. "Daddy!" Harry's face transformed. The exhaustion melted away, replaced by pure joy as the girl launched herself at him. He caught her easily, spinning her once before setting her down. "Mira, what are you doing here?" "Where's Mrs. Chen?" "She's coming." The girl was breathless, excitement radiating from her small frame. "But Daddy, I had to see. Is this her? Is this the blue lady from your story?" Akeem's markings flickered with confusion. "Story?" Harry's face flushed, an interesting human physiological response indicating embarrassment. "Mira, sweetheart, this is— You are!" Mira interrupted, her eyes widening as she stared at Akeem. "You're the one from Daddy's story, the brave scientist who saved the colony." "I think there's been a mistake," Akeem began. But Mira was already climbing onto the booth beside her, gazing up with unrestrained wonder. "Daddy tells me the story every night. About the famine when the crops were dying and everyone was scared. And then you came, the beautiful alien lady with glowing marks, and you figured out the soil enzyme problem. You saved everyone. You're a hero." Akeem's hearts, both of them, skipped in sequence. She looked at Harry, whose embarrassment had deepened to something approaching mortification. "You told her about the colony crisis?" Akeem asked quietly. Harry nodded. "I was there. Part of the emergency response team. I saw what you did. How you worked 72 hours straight. How you refused to give up when everyone else said it was impossible. How you—" He stopped, glancing at his daughter. "Mira loves that story." "It's my favorite story," Mira confirmed. "Better than the one about the space pirates or the one about the singing nebula. Because it's true, and because Daddy says real heroes are the ones who save people with their brains and their hearts, not just with weapons." An elderly human woman rushed through the door, apologizing profusely. "Mr. Harrison, I'm so sorry. She slipped away when I was paying for groceries." "It's all right, Mrs. Chen." Harry stood, reaching for his daughter's hand. "Come on, Mira, we need to wait." Akeem surprised herself with the word. She looked at the child, at those bright, hopeful eyes, and something shifted in her chest. "The soil enzyme problem. You know about that?" Mira nodded enthusiastically. "The phosphate-binding proteins. They were incompatible with the native bacteria, so you had to engineer a bridge species that could mediate the—" She stumbled over the technical terms, but the understanding was there, simplified into a child's vocabulary. Akeem turned to Harry. "You explained xenobiological enzyme cascades to a 6-year-old?" He shrugged, a small smile breaking through. "She asked a lot of questions. I work in agricultural mechanics, fixing the automated harvesters. After your solution was implemented, I made it my business to understand what you'd done. It was—" He met her eyes. "It was the most brilliant thing I've ever witnessed." The cafe seemed smaller suddenly, warmer. Akeem's markings began to pulse in a pattern she couldn't quite control, the involuntary display her people showed when experiencing unexpected connection. "You were there?" she asked. "During the crisis?" "Loading Dock 7. I saw you arrive on the relief shuttle. You looked terrified and determined in equal measure." "I was," Akeem admitted. 80,000 lives depending on a theory I'd only tested in laboratory conditions. "But you did it anyway." "Yes." Mira tugged on Akeem's sleeve. "Will you come to dinner, please? Daddy makes really good pasta, and I want to hear your version of the story." Harry shook his head. "Mira, that's not, we can't just," but Akeem was laughing. It started as a small sound, then grew into something genuine and unrestrained. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? When had anyone looked at her and seen past the alien features to the person beneath? This ordinary human with his calloused hands and his brilliant daughter had carried her story for 3 cycles, had turned her desperate work into bedtime legend. "I would love to," Akeem said, and watched Harry's expression transform again into that devastating smile. "But I should warn you, I have very strong opinions about proper pasta preparation techniques." "Good," Harry replied, extending his hand. "So do I. We're probably going to argue." Akeem took his hand, feeling the warmth of human skin against her own cooler palm. "I look forward to it." As they left the cafe together, Harry, Mira between them chattering about the story she'd demand to hear, Akeem's markings glowing with colors she'd forgotten she could produce, she realized something profound. The algorithm hadn't been wrong. It had simply measured compatibility in a language beyond chemistry or surface attraction. It had measured the space where respect, admiration, and genuine connection intersected. Sometimes heroes didn't need weapons or warrior prowess. Sometimes they just needed to remember that saving the world was only the beginning of the story, not its end. And sometimes the most extraordinary matches came wrapped in the most ordinary packages, delivered by a 6-year-old girl who understood that the best stories were the ones that saw you, truly saw you, for exactly who you were.